sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name's Beth. If you're new, welcome. It's always nice to sew with you. Today I have an older quilt behind me. It's worn out and I did a little investigation to figure out how this quilt was constructed. I was a little surprised how it was done, and I'm going to share that with you now. Let's get started. Here's a little close-up of the quilt. It was mostly hand-pieced and hand-quilted. There is no batting, and like I said, it's pretty old and the center is quite worn, so I was able to see how this quilt was put together. The binding was attached to the front, and then they rolled it to the back and did a very simple hand stitch on the back to hold that binding down. The corner of the binding is also a little bit different than we see nowadays, and I have a video about how some of these older bindings were done, and I'll leave a link below. Here's an area that's really worn away, so I was able to see how the quilter put this together. The pieces were hand-pieced, hand-sewn together, and they were placed on a foundation before the backing was added. And the foundations are different colored fabrics. Some were dark and some were light. Very thin fabrics that were used to put these pieces on. So I thought I would try to figure out how this quilter constructed the block to make this beautiful quilt. For each quarter circle, there are 6 fan blades, and I'm cutting mine 4.5 inches using this easy Dresden ruler. I have a 10-inch foundation, and I also have fabric for the top and the bottom of my fan, that reddish brown fabric. First thing I'm going to do is put my blades together using a 1/4 inch. It was a little bit tricky to figure out how the quilter cut her fabric. I don't know that she used a template, but I used my fan blades, and my blue chalk didn't work that well, so I used some white chalk, and I just marked on the top and the bottom of my fan, and then I will be cutting almost 1 inch away for my seam allowance. More than I need probably, but I wanted to give myself lots of room just in case. I cut in the inside of that quarter circle, and I'm using a very generous seam allowance, so I'll have the outside of my block and the inside of my block, and I will figure out how I'm going to put those onto the foundation. Chalk is nice to use because it's very washable, and with this solid fabric I was just able to turn it upside down, so I didn't even need to wash it away. It's on the back side. The first thing I did was I put my fan on the foundation, and then I added that top and bottom piece. And I think maybe the reason the block was constructed like this is because when this quilt was made, they did not have those templates that we have that make cutting so easy and precise. So I think if you start with that 10-inch background square, you're able to accurately piece if you do some applique, and that's what the quilter did. So first thing I did was to position the fan, and then I basted it on so it would stay in place, and I did the same thing with the red fabric. Now that I have everything basted, I just turned under that red fabric and I appliqued around that curve right through my fans and my foundation fabric. After I began appliquing, I thought it might be just a little bit easier if I pressed that edge under so that my fabric would kind of stay in place, and my curve there would be a little bit smoother. Didn't take long at all to applique those two curves, and then I took out my basting stitches and my block is ready to go. This old quilt is full of some heavy weight fabric, some wools, and some upholstery type fabric. It's really beautiful, and it was a lot of fun to figure out how the quilter long ago may have put her block together without using any of the fancy tools that we use nowadays. Although I did use that Dresden plate ruler, but I think she could have used also some cardboard or paper to get that fan blade cut correctly. So this is the old quilt, and here's an idea of what a new quilt might look like. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.